Alright, let's talk about 50 Cent for a second, because I feel like a lot of people still don't fully understand what makes him so weirdly important in hip-hop, even now. And I'm not even talking about the music first. I'm talking about the fact that somehow, no matter what era rap is in, no matter who's beefing, no matter what scandal is happening, no matter who is falling off, getting exposed, getting clowned, getting arrested, getting divorced, getting sued, or embarrassing themselves online, 50 Cent always finds a way to be part of the conversation, and not just as some washed-up old rapper trying to stay relevant. No, that's what makes this so interesting. He doesn't feel like someone begging for attention. He feels like someone who understands attention better than almost everybody else. And if we're being honest, that might be the real reason 50 Cent is still such a problem in hip-hop. Because while a lot of artists become legends and then slowly fade into legacy act territory, 50 Cent figured out how to stay dangerous without needing to dominate the charts anymore. That's a completely different kind of power. So if you've been seeing his name all over the place again, and wondering why people still care so much about what 50 Cent says, what he posts, who he trolls, and why every industry drama somehow turns into a 50 Cent moment, let's really break that down. Because this isn't just about nostalgia. This isn't just about, remember when 50 was huge. This is about how one of the smartest personalities in hip-hop realized that in the internet era, you don't need to be the hottest rapper in the world to control the room. You just need to know how to make the room react. And 50 Cent is one of the greatest reaction generators rap has ever seen. Now, to really understand why this matters, you have to go back to the beginning. Because 50 Cent didn't enter the music industry as some regular artist trying to slowly build a fan base. He arrived like a threat, and that's not even exaggeration. The image around him was insane from the start. This was a guy with a real street background, a real survival story, and one of the most marketable origin stories in hip-hop history. Getting shot 9 times and living to tell the story already made him larger than life before most mainstream audiences even fully knew who he was. And once that story got attached to the music, everything exploded. Because 50 Cent wasn't just talented, he was believable. That matters more than people admit. A lot of rappers can make records. A lot of rappers can talk tough. But very few can make people feel like the music and the image are perfectly aligned. 50 could. And once the industry realized that, it was over. Then came Get Rich or Die Tryin. And let's be honest, that wasn't just a successful debut album. That was domination. That was one of those albums that changes the temperature of the entire genre. You couldn't escape it. The singles were everywhere. The hooks were everywhere. The energy was everywhere. And 50 Cent didn't just become a rapper with a hit album. He became the guy, the problem, the event, the center of gravity. And what made it even crazier was that his whole brand was built around pressure. Everything about 50 felt confrontational. His music felt confrontational. His interviews felt confrontational. His presence felt confrontational. Even when he was smiling, it felt like there was a threat hidden underneath it. And hip-hop loved that. Because hip-hop has always respected people who can make the room uncomfortable and still come out on top. That's exactly what 50 did. But here's where it gets interesting. A lot of people remember the rise. A lot of people remember the Bulletproof Vest era, the G-Unit era, the Total Takeover era. What I think people underestimate is how smart 50 was during all of that. Because while the public saw aggression, beef, records, and headlines, 50 was building something else in the background. He was studying attention. He understood conflict before social media turned conflict into an entire business model. He understood that in hip-hop, people don't just listen to music. They pick sides, they choose narratives, they follow wars. And 50 Cent was one of the first artists of his generation who really mastered that on a mainstream level. Beef wasn't just random drama to him. Beef was positioning. Beef was branding. Beef was momentum. And whether you loved him or hated him, you were paying attention. That's why his rivalries were so huge. Because they didn't feel accidental, they felt central to who he was. He made enemies the way other artists made singles. And somehow, instead of destroying his career, it made him more famous. That's rare. Most artists get swallowed by conflict eventually. 50 used conflict like fuel. Now, of course, no run lasts forever. That first insane peak couldn't stay that high forever. The charts changed, the sound of hip-hop changed, the audience changed. And like a lot of stars from that era, 50 Cent eventually reached the point where people started asking the usual questions. Is he still hot? Is he still relevant? Is he still one of the top guys? And that's usually where the story gets sad for most rappers. That's usually where they either disappear, start chasing trends badly, embarrass themselves trying to seem young again, or become nostalgia acts performing old hits to crowds that mainly want memories. But 50 didn't do that. And this is where I think the current 50 Cent story becomes way more interesting than people realize. Instead of desperately trying to prove he was still the hottest rapper alive, he shifted the battlefield. That's the genius part. He basically said, all right, if the center of culture is changing, then I'm changing with it, but on my terms. So instead of forcing himself to stay in one lane, he expanded. Business, television, production, branding, and then he built power. Now stop and really think about how wild that is. Most rappers would be thrilled to have one legendary music run, and then slowly fade into respectable veteran status. 50 Cent turned himself into a serious television force, and not in a little side project way. He built something that actually mattered. He built a media lane that gave him a whole new audience, and a whole new reason to remain culturally relevant. That matters, because it changed the way people viewed him. He wasn't just the guy from the early 2000s anymore. He became a businessman with ongoing influence. And once that happened, 50 entered a totally different phase of celebrity. He no longer needed music to justify his presence. His presence justified itself. That's power. But then social media matured. And this is where 50 Cent found what might be his most dangerous weapon yet: the internet. Because if you think about it, 50 Cent's personality was basically made for the social media era, before the social media era even fully arrived. He's petty, he's strategic, he's funny, he's cruel when he wants to be. He knows how to drag a moment out, he knows how to phrase things so they spread. He knows exactly how to post something that feels reckless while actually being calculated. And that combination is almost unfair online. So what happened? Simple. 50 Cent became one of the best trolls in entertainment. Not one of the best rappers who trolls. One of the best trolls in entertainment, period. And that gave him an entirely new kind of relevance. Because now he didn't need an album rollout to dominate conversation. He didn't need radio. He didn't need MTV. He didn't need a magazine cover. All he had to do was post. That's it. One post, one caption, one joke, one insult, one side comment. And suddenly blogs pick it up. Twitter picks it up. Instagram pages repost it, YouTube channels make videos about it, fans debate it, and 50 Cent is right back at the center of the room. That is not normal. Most artists get older and lose the ability to generate energy. 50 got older and somehow became even better at it. But this is exactly where the 50 Cent situation gets strange, because now people are starting to realize that he's not just reacting to the culture anymore. In a weird way, he's gaming it. Every scandal becomes an opportunity. Every rap beef becomes content. Every messy public downfall becomes something he can attach himself to with one post and instantly become part of the story. Now, obviously some people love this. They think he's hilarious. They think he says what everybody else is too scared to say. They think he cuts through fake industry politeness and exposes people by being brutally honest. And to be fair, that's part of the appeal. 50 doesn't sound managed. He doesn't sound polished. He doesn't sound like he ran his opinion through 10 publicists and 3 lawyers before speaking. That authenticity, even when it's messy, is powerful online. But let's be real, there's another side to it. Because after a while, some people stop seeing it as honesty and start seeing it as addiction to attention. They start asking whether 50 Cent comments on everything because he genuinely has something to say, or because he knows keeping his name attached to drama is good business. And that's where the public perception around him gets really interesting. Because honestly, the answer is probably both. That's what makes him dangerous. He can mean what he says and still understand that saying it is useful. That's a powerful combination. Now think about what that means for his current role in hip-hop. He's not just an artist anymore. He's almost like a shadow commentator, a chaos narrator, a guy who sits just outside the center of every scandal and knows exactly when to jump in. And when he jumps in, people listen because his history gives his opinion weight. This isn't some random internet clown talking. This is 50 Cent, a guy who actually lived through rap wars, industry politics, business fights, label power struggles, and media reinvention. So when he talks, even if he's joking, it lands differently. That's why he remains so effective. Now here's the other thing people don't talk about enough. Part of why 50 Cent still works is because he never became soft in the public imagination. That matters a lot. Some artists get richer and more successful, but in the process they lose the edge that made people fear or respect them. 50 somehow maintained the edge, even when he moved into television, even when he became more business-focused, even when the music wasn't the center of his brand anymore. He still feels like somebody who could ruin your day just because he's bored. That's a weird asset, but it's an asset. And in the current culture, where so many celebrities feel overly packaged and carefully managed, that unpredictability makes him stand out even more. But there's still a bigger question here, and this is where the story actually gets deeper than just memes and social media jokes. What exactly is 50 Cent's legacy becoming now? Because this is where it gets tricky. If you ask one group of people, 50 is a hip-hop legend, one of the best comeback stories in rap, a businessman, a TV producer, and one of the smartest personalities in entertainment. If you ask another group, he's become more famous for trolling and drama than for anything creative he's done recently. And if we're being real, that tension is exactly what makes his current position so fascinating. Because we're no longer just talking about the 50 Cent who changed rap with one of the biggest debuts ever. We're talking about the 50 Cent who learned how to turn the internet itself into a stage. And that raises a weird question. Does that make him smarter than everyone else? Or does it mean the modern culture rewards chaos so much that someone like 50 was always destined to thrive in it? Probably both. Now let's go even further, because one reason 50 Cent is still such a force is that he understands humiliation as a weapon. That sounds harsh, but it's true. He knows that in modern celebrity culture, sometimes the fastest way to dominate a story is not by defending yourself. It's by making the other person look ridiculous first. He's done that repeatedly. He doesn't just argue, he frames people. He turns them into characters. He reduces complicated situations into instantly shareable moments where somebody looks stupid and he looks in control. That is an elite internet skill, and it's one of the main reasons people still can't ignore him. But the downside is obvious. Once you become that person, people stop seeing you as just an artist or businessman. They start seeing you as a permanent agent of chaos. And the problem with being the chaos guy is that eventually people start wondering whether you can still create anything bigger than the chaos itself. That's the tension around 50 Cent right now. Is he still building things? Or is he mostly feeding off the energy of other people's mess? Now obviously he still has real business power. He still has entertainment influence. He still knows how to move a room. So this isn't some 50 Cent fell-off conversation. That would be lazy and inaccurate. This is actually more interesting than that. This is about a guy who already won, already survived, already built a second act, and is now operating in a third act that almost nobody saw coming. A third act where his words are content, his reactions are events, and his online presence is a form of power all by itself. And honestly, that makes him one of the strangest figures in hip-hop. Because how many people can say they were a rap superstar, a business success, a television force, and then somehow an elite-level internet disruptor on top of all that? Very few. But the reason the 50 Cent situation feels strange right now is because we're watching all those identities blur together. He's not just the old 50. He's not just the rap legend. He's not just the businessman. He's not just the troll. He's all of them at once. And that makes him incredibly hard to classify. Now whether that's good or bad depends on how you look at it. Some fans think it's brilliant. They think he cracked the code of relevance. Others think it's a sign that modern celebrity culture is so broken that one of its most successful players is basically surviving by commenting on the collapse of everyone else. Again, both views probably have some truth in them, and that's why 50 remains so watchable. Because even when you think you understand what he's doing, He finds another angle, another move, another post, another moment, and suddenly the whole conversation starts again. So no, the 50 Cent situation isn't strange because he's washed or because he's fading. It's strange because he's still here, still effective, still sharp, still able to control attention in ways artists half his age would kill for. And if you really think about it, that might be the most impressive thing about him. Not the debut album, not even the business empire, not the survival story. The most impressive thing might be that after all this time, 50 Cent still knows exactly how to make people stop scrolling and pay attention. That's rare, that's valuable, and in the internet era, that might actually be more powerful than a hit record. So maybe the real story isn't whether 50 Cent is still relevant. Maybe the real story is that he figured out a version of relevance that doesn't expire the way music fame usually does. And if that's true, then what we're watching now isn't the decline of 50 Cent. It's the weird evolution of someone who refuses to ever become easy to ignore. And honestly, that's exactly why people are still talking about him.